Hello and welcome to the further action of me refitting the inside of my camper van. At the end of the last few episodes, the diesel heater had satisfactorily run its initial installation test, and I had also cut out the new worktop and made a hole in it for the sink. It is now about a week later, and as you can see, I have stained the worktop to match the rest of the van and also varnished it, which has come out reasonably well. However, the whole thing is not yet fastened down, and the only thing that stops it swaying about while you drive is the fact that I have put the sink in with sealant, as I discovered on a recent drive. So I need to fasten it down. The previous worktop I fastened with screws that went in from underneath and up, and I think there are about 5 of them holding it in place, and that worked perfectly well. However, when taking everything apart to take out the old heater and the old hob and so on, I was very pleased with how I'd made certain parts of the van modular. So the overhead shelves, which were just clipped on, I could detach those and move them out of the way very simply. And I thought, do you know what, I probably don't want this new worktop screwed back in again, because although it's relatively straightforward to take the screws out, wouldn't it be even better if it just bolted into place with some little bolts? Hang on, I've got them here. This kind of thing, where you can just latch it into place like that, and then if I ever need to take the worktop off again, just undo the latches and lift it off. So I'm going to do a combination of latches and also some chunks of wood that will, when the worktop is put into place, will hold it from slip sliding around. What I'm thinking is that if I put a block of wood here, then when this goes down, that block of wood will sit against this one and stop the worktop being able to slide this way, and then I can put a latch on the bottom of that which latches across there as well. So not just the bolts, but some lumps of wood, belt and braces. Quite clearly there is plenty of space along here to put a block of wood that'll stop it trying to go backwards. Plenty of space along this midsection, and then also plenty of space to drop one here. Now unfortunately I won't be able to get a latch under there because of that bit of wood which is on the detachable section to get to the water. So I'll probably have to put a latch on that corner, and then I want to put another one around about here, although that may also have a chunk of wood, I'll have to check that, and then a couple of latches up at that end. It turns out I'm alright at this end because I did put a gap between the bits of wood so the little latch can go there. So we have, we could put a bit that's that long. I don't want to make it fit the entire width, do I? I don't know if that would be helpful in any way. I suppose it would stop it going back and forth. I suppose I could make a bit that long. That would need to be 39.4, 39.3 and a tiny bit. It's about 39.3 and a half, which is slightly irritating. Well, I really should have known better than to try to do that just with a hacksaw by eye. The cut is all on the wonk, of course. However, as luck would have it, the bit of wood is just about the right sort of length if you can ignore the fact that it's slightly wonky. So I'm still going to use it because it'll do the job. You see there, that'll do. And although it's a bit wonky at that end, it doesn't really matter because the worktop itself can't go backwards that way because it'll hit this wall. So really what you're trying to achieve here is a platform for me to put a bolt, and then also this needs to be far enough this way that the worktop can't try and slide forwards and off. So as long as this corner here is in this corner, that's absolutely fine. So we'll go with that as piece number 1. I'll have another one here also to stop it coming forwards, but not for latches, and then the other latches will go at that end. I'm beginning to wonder if I should just stop now. It's one of those days where my brain just isn't functioning, and I'm cutting bits of wood thinking absolutely I've got this, the right dimensions, and then it's so ridiculously wrong as to be, what the heck was I thinking of? Do you have days like that? It's just everything's not quite connecting up here. I think I'll plough on for a little bit and just see how I get on, but I'm starting to get annoyed with myself for just being totally out of it. What I have realised is that I don't need a piece in the middle, of course, because if I've got that corner piece stopping that end from coming this way, and then I've cut this piece, which will go there, and that stops the worktop from going that way or that way. Notice my good Wednesday Addams hand style action here. That way or that way. Then I won't need another piece in the middle to stop it going that way, because this piece is going to do that. So I just need one piece at each end. And I need to make sure that when I glue them to the worktop, they are right up against the end. Otherwise, obviously, the worktop will have wiggle, and we don't want wiggle. To that end, then, I'm going to put the worktop back into place and make sure it's very firmly in the corner where it wants to be. Now, I could mark with a pencil and then glue and screw the bits on, but that leaves room for error. I wonder if I can screw them in place and glue them in place in situ by lying underneath this with my drill. I think that might work. What I'll do is I'll pre-drill some holes in that piece and whatever the other piece was. Was it that one? Yes. That one was going there, wasn't it? Yeah. I'll pre-drill some holes. I think we'll do 3 holes in each of these. Now I'll put that in place and drill again so as to put little pre-holes in the bottom of the worktop, and I have made sure that my drill can't drill through the worktop. Famous last words. That will be going there. So let's have that. Pop that down so that it's as it really were. Push that as far to that side as I can. That needs to sit in its normal position. Oh, I can't get into it. Oh, for crying out loud. I can't actually get to the 3rd hole because of the... I'm going to have to make a different hole. That's annoying. So that's that way, that way. It's those 3 holes. I'm going to countersink them. So that goes like that. Screws go in there, and I'll now add a bit of glue to that as well, belt and braces. I don't think it'll need a lot because it squidges out quite a bit. Which way does that go? That goes that way. Perhaps I'll do it from down here. Now that was like that. That goes up to that end, and in theory those should line up. What am I doing? I ought to be able to lift this up and do it that way now, shouldn't I? Now, the actual moment of truth is if I now put that back, does it line up? doesn't. Oh yes, it does. Ooh, that's tight. That's tight. But it does stop that moving. So that objective is achieved. Okay. Alright, well, it was a major hassle, but there we go. Pop that back in there. So now I want to do the one at the other end. Like the fool I am, I thought that one was going to be straightforward until I tried to drill up from underneath and realised, of course, I have the new diesel heater there. Duh! So I couldn't actually get the drill in. So I had to drill it and kind of hope for the best. And I think it's okay, but it's a very tight fit. So I'll flip that over and you'll see. What I've discovered is you have to pop this down pretty much straight. Right, that ends in. And there, that's in. That is in, and I've managed to get sawdust in the sealant that I put the... It's still sticky enough that it's catching the sawdust. That's irritating. However, look, that is, apart from the general wobbliness of the cabinetry, that is not going anywhere. It's not going that way, it's not coming this way, it's not going this way. So in effect, that is now in. In fact, it's so tight, it's holding itself down, so the catches, which I was going to put on, which were partly to hold it, but also partly because there was a slight curve in the plywood and it was bending up. I may almost not need those because that is so tight. I mean, that's... I think I still... Well, I don't know. That is so tight, maybe I don't need the catches. That's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. That's a little bit... There's a little bit of a loose end there. So I probably will put some catches on, I think, actually. I might even shave a tiny, tiny bit of that off to make it a little less stiff. Not bad, though. I find myself getting quite annoyed again. I cut a little bit of wood to put one of the bolts onto, glued it on to the worktop on the underside, then suddenly realised I wouldn't have space, having glued it, to drill the holes for the screws for the bolt. So I quickly took it off before the glue set. Then the screws for the bolt, they're so tiny, tiny little things they are. I don't have a drill that is small enough to make a pilot hole. And I thought, well, it's soft wood and they're such tiny screws, maybe I can just drive them straight into the wood. And they almost went until the very last turn of the screw when it promptly cracked the wood. And my patience is being tried. The day is just not running as smoothly as I like things to run. And I know my DIY never runs truly smoothly, but even by my standards, there's just lots of really irritating things happening. So I'm probably going to have a break for a bit of lunch and a nice cup of tea, and then see if, frankly, I can be bothered to come back out again. I think what I'm going to quickly do to try and get myself in a good mood is work on the water supply, because that's the supply up to the tap, and that's how I used to have it. And that is on a piece of stiff pipe which goes down to the water pump. But when the water pump runs, even though the pipe fits over the outlet, the pressure of the water flowing is just enough to squish the pump off the pipe. So I'm going to go back to using flexible pipe, which I stopped because it's always curved. And when it's curved, it means the pump always ends up lying sideways at the bottom of the thing instead of straight down, and that's why I switched to using a straight bit of pipe. But what I'm going to do is put the curved pipe in a larger thing of straight pipe to hold it straight down. You see, here's that straight pipe, and it holds the pump vertically as it's supposed to be, right down at the bottom of the tank, because the water is drawn up right from the bottom. But it's just not quite tight enough to stay on, and I'm forever having to reattach it. First of all, there's a guy mowing his lawn or something, which you can probably hear making a noise in the background. Secondly, the day gets no better. This replacement pipe, 10mm internal diameter, which is supposed to be pretty much standard for all these little pumps is no tighter on the outlet of that than the straight pipe was. I want something that's really squishy that I have to put in hot water to get on there so it stays tight, and this is not it. So this is frustrating. And the other thing that needs addressing is this waste pipe that came with the sink has this inordinately long drop to start with, and then no matter how I bend it, there's going to be this upward section before it goes down into the waste bottle. And I can't cut this back because there's a little lip on it that has a gasket that gets screwed in by this. So if I cut that back, there won't be anywhere for the gasket to sit. So that has to be that length, which is annoying. What I've done therefore is buy this outlet thing that goes directly sideways, and I need to somehow mount that in place of that. I do not know if the two will fit yet. I bought it in the hope, which may be foolhardy. Replacing the drain bit proved to be alarmingly simple. Unscrew a screw, put new one in, and what's more, the existing plug even fits the new one, so that's good. Underneath it comes straight out to the side, so I just need a little bit of pipe to go like that, and I have bought some pipe, but it needs a connector, which I have a suspicion may leak. The connector just pushes in and is a very tight fit, so I'm hoping that won't leak. And now I need to cut a bit of this to come off that and into the waste tank. You know, I don't really like this pipe. It just kind of pushes on very loosely. I mean, that's ridiculously loose. It's obviously going to leak. So, and I don't think a Jubilee clip will actually tighten it up so that it doesn't. I don't think there's enough bend in the pipe. I could put some sealant in it, and then it's a really tight bend round to there, so it actually starts pushing the whole empty container forwards. Look. Which is going to annoy me. So I'm going to take that off and live with that for the moment, which obviously can't be used, but I'm just going to take that as my win for the day.